Delmar Arnault, who the world would come to know as Daz Dillinger, grew up surrounded by music. He was born in Long Beach, California, a place that would become the heart of the G-Funk sound. His cousin was a tall, skinny kid named Snoop Dogg. From a young age, Daz was fascinated with how music was made. He wasn't just a listener, he was a student of the craft. He would spend hours playing with drum machines and keyboards, trying to figure out how to create the sounds he heard on the radio. His early life was a constant experiment in rhythm and melody, a preparation for a future he couldn't yet imagine. The music was in his blood, a part of his family, and a part of his city. While Daz was soaking up the California sun, another young talent was finding his voice on the other side of the country. Ricardo Brown Jr., later known as Kurupt, was born in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. The East Coast had a very different rap style. It was all about complex rhymes and sharp lyrical wordplay. Kurupt listened to legends like Rakim and Big Daddy Kane, studying their flow and delivery. He developed a skill for crafting intricate verses that told vivid stories. His style was precise and aggressive, a sharp contrast to the laid-back vibe of the West Coast. He was a pure lyricist, a wordsmith who could paint pictures with his rhymes. He dreamed of making a name for himself in the competitive world of hip-hop. Daz's journey was deeply tied to the rise of West Coast hip-hop. He saw firsthand how his cousin Snoop and others were creating a new movement. He learned production from some of the best, absorbing the techniques that made G-Funk so unique. The sound was smooth, melodic, and funky, perfect for cruising down the streets of Los Angeles. Daz became a producer in his own right, creating beats that captured this distinctive California feeling. He was building the foundations of his career, one beat at a time. He was a quiet force working behind the scenes, but his talent was undeniable. His sound would soon help define an entire era of rap music. At the age of 16, Kurupt made a life-changing decision. He moved to Hawthorne, California to live with his father. This move put him right in the middle of the exploding West Coast rap scene. It was a culture shock, but it was also a huge opportunity. He brought his East Coast lyrical skills to a place dominated by a different style. This combination made him stand out. He was different. He was a fierce rapper with a sharp tongue, and people started to notice. He began battling other rappers, proving his skills on the microphone. His reputation grew quickly as a young man from Philly who could out-rap anyone in his path. This move set the stage for his destiny. The world of West Coast hip-hop in the early 1990s was a small, tight-knit community. Everyone knew everyone, and talent traveled fast through word of mouth. Daz Dillinger was already making a name for himself as a producer. He was working closely with Dr. Dre, the mastermind behind the G-Funk sound. Daz was a key part of the team creating the beats for what would become one of the most important albums in hip-hop history, The Chronic. He was young, but his ear for music was incredible. He knew how to lay down a funky bass line and a smooth melody. He was becoming an essential ingredient in the Death Row Records recipe for success. Around the same time, Kurupt was making waves with his lyrical abilities. He was known for his incredible freestyle skills and his ability to destroy other rappers in battles. His friend, the Dogg, another legendary lyricist, was impressed by his talent. The Dogg was a key figure at Death Row Records, and he saw something special in Kurupt. He knew that Kurupt's sharp, aggressive rhymes would be a perfect fit for the label. He introduced Kurupt to the inner circle, bringing him into the studio where history was being made. Kurupt had found his way to the epicenter of the rap world, a place where his skills could truly shine on a global stage. The meeting that would change everything happened in the Death Row studio. Daz was there, crafting beats. Kurupt was there, ready to rap. Dr. Dre and Snoop Dogg saw the potential immediately. They put Kurupt on a track, and he delivered a verse that blew everyone away. His East Coast lyrical precision combined perfectly with the smooth, funky West Coast beats that Daz was helping to create. It was a new sound, a perfect blend of two different styles. The chemistry between Daz's production and Kurupt's rhymes was undeniable. It was like they were two halves of a whole, destined to make music together. This natural chemistry led to the official formation of Dogg Pound. The name was a perfect fit, as they were part of the new generation of artists under Snoop Dogg's wing. They were his pups, the next in line to carry the torch for Death Row Records. They weren't just a group, they were a family. They spent countless hours in the studio together, honing their craft and creating music. Daz supplied the beats, and Kurupt supplied the rhymes. Together, they represented the next evolution of the G-Funk sound. They were young, hungry, and ready to take over the world. The Dogg Pound was born, and the hip-hop landscape would never be the same. Death Row Records was more than just a record label. In the early 1990s, it was the center of the hip-hop universe. It was founded by Suge Knight and Dr. Dre, and it quickly became known for its incredible success and its intimidating reputation. The label's office was a place of legend where platinum plaques lined the walls and the biggest stars in rap came to work. For a young artist, getting signed to Death Row was like being drafted to a championship team. It meant you were working with the best of the best. It was a golden ticket to fame and fortune, a promise of a career that could change your life forever. Dazz and Kurupt had arrived at the right place at the right time. Their connection to the label was solidified through family and friendship. Dazz was Snoop Dogg's cousin, which gave him an inside track, but it was his talent as a producer that truly earned him his spot. Dr. Dre recognized his skills and took him under his wing as a protege. Kurupt was brought in by the DOC, who vouched for his lyrical prowess. Together, they became key members of the Death Row family. They weren't just background players, they were an essential part of the creative process. They contributed to Dr. Dre's The Chronic and Snoop Dogg's Doggy Style, two of the most iconic albums of the decade. Their voices and beats were woven into the fabric of Death Row's sound. Working at Death Row was an intense experience. The label was known for its us against the world mentality. Suge Knight ran the company with an iron fist, creating an environment that was both highly creative and highly pressured. There was a sense of loyalty and brotherhood among the artists, but there was also a constant feeling of danger. The studio was a place of magic, where hit records were made day and night. But it was also a place where tempers could flare and conflicts could arise. Dazz and Kurupt learned to navigate this complex world, focusing on their music while staying aware of the drama that often surrounded them. Being part of Death Row meant being part of a movement. The label was changing the sound of popular music and shifting the balance of power in the industry from New York to Los Angeles. Dazz and Kurupt were on the front lines of this cultural shift. They appeared in music videos, performed on massive stages, and became recognizable faces of the G-Funk era. Their association with Snoop Dogg and Dr. Dre gave them instant credibility. They were no longer just two kids with a dream. They were rising stars on the most powerful and controversial record label in the world. Their journey was just beginning, but they were already at the top of the game. After their crucial contributions to The Chronic and Doggy Style, the world was eager to hear what The Dogg Pound could do on their own. The anticipation for their debut album was huge. They were the next big act from the unstoppable Death Row machine. The pressure was on to deliver a classic, and they did not disappoint. In 1995, they released their first album, Dog Food. The title itself was a bold statement. It suggested that other rappers were merely dog food for them, establishing their dominance in the rap game. The album was a raw, unfiltered look into the lives of two young men from the West Coast, full of confidence and attitude. The sound of Dog Food was a perfect continuation of the G-Funk style that Dazz had helped pioneer. As the main producer of the album, Dazz stepped out from behind Dr. Dre's shadow and proved he was a master beatmaker in his own right. The music was smooth and melodic, with heavy bass lines and soulful samples, but it also had a harder edge than previous Death Row releases. Kurupt's lyrics were sharp and aggressive, a perfect match for Dazz's gritty production. Together, they created a sound that was both gangster and sophisticated. It was music you could cruise to, but it also had a sense of urgency and danger. The album spawned several hit songs that became anthems of the era. The lead single, Let's Play House, featuring Michelle and Nate Dogg, was a massive radio hit. It was a smoother R&B-influenced track that showed their commercial appeal. However, the song that truly defined the album and the group was New York, New York. The track, featuring Snoop Dogg, was a direct challenge to the East Coast rap scene. The music video, which showed the Death Row artists stomping on a giant version of Times Square, was incredibly controversial. It added major fuel to the growing fire of the East Coast-West Coast rivalry that was beginning to dominate hip-hop. Dog Food was a massive commercial success. It debuted at #1 on the Billboard 200 chart and went on to sell over 2 million copies. The album solidified The Dogg Pound's status as major stars in the music industry. It proved that the Death Row dynasty was not just about Dr. Dre and Snoop Dogg. Dazz and Kurupt had shown that they could carry an entire project on their own. The album was a landmark achievement for West Coast hip-hop and remains a beloved classic to this day. It captured a specific moment in time, a snapshot of the confidence, creativity, and controversy of the mid-1990s. The release of New York, New York was, honestly, a turning point. What started as friendly competition between the two coasts quickly spiraled into a serious and dangerous conflict. East Coast rappers felt disrespected by the song and its video. In response, New York artists like Capone and Noreaga and Mobb Deep released a track called LA, LA, which was a direct retaliation against Dogg Pound. Suddenly, Daz and Kurupt found themselves at the center of the biggest feud in hip-hop history. They were no longer just making music. They were, in a sense, soldiers in a cultural war. The rivalry was promoted by the media and fueled by personal tensions between the leaders of the labels. The atmosphere at Death Row became even more intense. The label embraced the conflict, seeing it as a way to promote their us against the world image. Suge Knight in particular seemed to enjoy the drama. This put immense pressure on the artists. They had to watch their backs everywhere they went. Attending award shows or traveling to other cities became a security risk. The fun-loving spirit of making music was being replaced by a sense of paranoia and fear. The feud was no longer just about lyrics and beats. It had become personal, and the stakes were getting higher every day. Daz and Kurupt were young men caught in a storm that was much bigger than them. A pivotal moment in the feud occurred at the 1995 Source Awards in New York City. On stage, Suge Knight famously took a shot at Sean Puffy Combs, the head of Bad Boy Records, Death Row's main rival. The crowd, mostly from the East Coast, booed loudly. When Dr. Dre and Snoop Dogg went up to accept an award, they were also met with hostility. This event made the division in hip-hop clear to everyone. It was no longer just a media story. It was a real and tangible conflict. Dogg Pound was right there, witnessing the hostility firsthand. They were part of the Death Row entourage that day, and the experience left a lasting impact on them. The feud had a profound effect on Daz and Kurupt's career and personal lives. It overshadowed their musical accomplishments and forced them to constantly address the conflict in interviews. The focus shifted from their creative talents to their role in the coastal war. This was honestly a heavy burden for two artists who simply wanted to make great music. The rivalry created a climate of fear that ultimately led to tragedy. With the deaths of Tupac Shakur and the notorious Big for Dogg Pound, the success of was forever linked to this dark and difficult chapter in hip-hop history. It was a time of great success, but also great sorrow. The death of Tupac Shakur in 1996 was a devastating blow to Death Row Records. He was the label's biggest star, and his loss created a void that could not be filled. Shortly after, Dr. Dre decided to leave the label he co-founded, citing concerns over the company's direction and Suge Knight's aggressive business practices. Snoop Dogg would also eventually leave. The empire that had once seemed invincible began to crumble. For Daz and Kurupt, this was a period of great uncertainty. The family they had been a part of was breaking apart, and the future of the label was in serious doubt. They were left to figure out their next steps in a rapidly changing landscape. With Dr. Dre gone, Daz Dillinger stepped up to become the head producer for Death Row. He was responsible for producing a large portion of the label's remaining projects, including Tupac's posthumous album. This was a massive responsibility for a young producer. He worked tirelessly to keep the signature Death Row sound alive. However, the label was no longer the creative powerhouse it once was. Suge Knight's legal troubles mounted, and he was eventually sent to prison. Without its key leaders and artists, Death Row Records lost its momentum, and its influence began to fade away. This period also saw the beginning of a rift between Daz and Kurupt. As the label fell apart, the two friends began to drift in different directions. Kurupt decided to leave Death Row to pursue a solo career elsewhere. This decision caused tension between him and Daz, who chose to remain loyal to the label and Suge Knight for a time. For several years, the two founding members of Dogg Pound were not on speaking terms. Their brotherhood, which had been forged in the studio, was tested by the pressures of the industry and the collapse of the world they had known. The Dogg Pound, as a group, was officially on hold. The challenges they faced were immense. They had to deal with the legacy of Death Row, which was now seen as a symbol of violence and controversy. They also had to fight for control of their own music. Daz engaged in a long legal battle with Suge Knight over the rights to Dogg Pound name and their master recordings. It was a difficult and expensive fight, but it was a necessary one for him to gain independence and control his own destiny. The fall of Death Row was a messy and complicated process, and Dazz and Kurupt had to navigate the fallout while trying to keep their careers alive. The Dogg Pound's impact on hip-hop, especially on the West Coast, cannot be overstated. They were more than just successful artists. They were architects of a sound and a style that influenced a generation. Dazz Dillinger's production work was fundamental to the G-Funk era. His ability to blend smooth melodic samples with hard-hitting drums and deep, funky bass lines helped define the sound of the 90s. Many producers who came after him studied his techniques. Artists like Kendrick Lamar and YG have cited the G-Funk sound as a major influence, and Dazz's fingerprints are all over that style. He created a blueprint for how to make music that was both gangster and soulful. Kurupt's contribution was equally important. He brought a level of lyrical complexity to West Coast rap that was not common at the time. His intricate rhyme schemes and aggressive delivery set a new standard for lyricism. Rappers on the West Coast were often stereotyped as having simple, party-focused rhymes, but Kurupt shattered that perception. He proved that you could be from California and still be a top-tier lyricist, capable of competing with anyone from any region. He inspired countless rappers to focus on their pen game and elevate their lyrical skills. He was a rapper's rapper, respected by his peers for his pure talent on the microphone. Together, as The Dogg Pound, they represented a perfect fusion of styles. They showed that you could have smooth, melodic beats paired with sharp, complex lyrics. This combination became a hallmark of West Coast hip-hop. Their music was the soundtrack for a generation of young people in California and beyond. It spoke to their experiences, their struggles, and their triumphs. The group's image, the baggy clothes, the laid-back attitude mixed with a dangerous edge, also became iconic. They helped to shape the culture of West Coast rap, not just its sound. Their influence is still felt today in the music and style of many contemporary artists. Their legacy is also tied to their resilience. They survived the rise and fall of one of the most notorious record labels in history. They endured the East Coast-West Coast feud and personal conflicts. Through it all, they continued to make music and stay true to their roots. This story of survival has inspired many artists who face challenges in the music industry. The Dogg Pound showed that it is possible to navigate the toughest of times and come out on the other side with your artistic integrity intact. Their story is a lesson in perseverance, a testament to the enduring power of their music and their brotherhood. After the turmoil at Death Row Records, both Dazz and Kurupt embarked on solo careers. Kurupt released his debut solo album in 1998. It was an ambitious double album that showcased his versatility, with one disc dedicated to West Coast sounds and the other to an East Coast style. He continued to release music and collaborated with a wide range of artists, solidifying his reputation as a respected lyricist. Dazz also went solo, releasing his album in 1998. He founded his own record label, Dogg Pound Records, giving him the creative and financial freedom he had long sought. This allowed him to release his own music and projects from other West Coast artists. The time apart was difficult for their fans, who longed to see the duo back together. The feud between them was a sad chapter in their story. However, time has a way of healing old wounds. Snoop Dogg played a key role in bringing them back together. He wanted to reunite his old friends and bring the Dogg Pound family back to its former glory. Around 2005, Dazz and Kurupt officially reconciled. They put their differences aside and realized that they were stronger together. The reunion was celebrated by fans all over the world. It was a powerful moment that showed the strength of their bond. Since their reunion, The Dogg Pound has continued to tour and record new music together. They have released several independent albums such as And. While these albums may not have reached the massive commercial success of, they were a gift to their loyal fan base. The music showed that their chemistry was still intact, Dazz's beats were still funky, and Kurupt's rhymes were still sharp. They have toured the world with Snoop Dogg, performing their classic hits for sold-out crowds. They have embraced their status as legends of the genre, continuing to represent the West Coast sound they helped create. Today, Dazz and Kurupt are seen as elder statesmen of hip-hop. They are respected veterans who have seen it all. Dazz remains active as a producer, working with both established and up-and-coming artists. He is also very active on social media, often sharing stories and behind-the-scenes memories from the Death Row days. Kurupt continues to be regarded as one of the most skilled lyricists in the game, frequently appearing as a featured guest on other artists' tracks. They have found a comfortable balance, pursuing their individual interests while also coming together to carry on the legacy of Dogg. Their journey is far from over. The story of Daz Dillinger and Kurupt is more than just a music biography. It is a tale of friendship, loyalty, conflict, and survival. They came from different coasts and different backgrounds, but they found a common ground in their love for music. Together, they created a sound that defined an era and left a permanent mark on American culture. Their journey through the highs and lows of the music industry is a compelling narrative that deserves to be told. They were central figures in some of the most dramatic moments in hip-hop history, and they lived to tell the tale. Their legacy is built not only on their hit records, but also on their incredible story of endurance. To fans, Dogg represents authenticity. In a genre that is often criticized for being fake, Daz and Kurupt have always been real. Their music was a reflection of their lives and their environment. They never shied away from telling the truth, whether it was about street life, industry politics, or personal struggles. This honesty is why their music continues to resonate with listeners today. When you listen to a Dogg track, you feel like you are getting a genuine piece of who they are. They are living legends, not just because of their success, but because of their unwavering commitment to being true to themselves. Their influence continues to be felt in the modern music landscape. The G-funk sound they helped perfect can be heard in the work of many contemporary artists. The standard for lyricism that Kurupt set continues to inspire new generations of rappers to take their craft seriously. They are a bridge between the old school and the new school, a link to a golden era of hip-hop that many fans look back on with nostalgia. Their story serves as a valuable lesson for young artists about the importance of talent, hard work, and loyalty. It also serves as a cautionary tale about the dangers of the music business. Ultimately, the legacy of Dogg is one of brotherhood. Despite the feuds, the business disputes, and the years spent apart, Daz and Kurupt found their way back to each other. Their ability to reconcile and continue making music together is perhaps their greatest triumph. It shows that the bonds of friendship can be stronger than any industry conflict. Today, when they stand on stage together, they represent more than just a rap group. They represent the enduring power of partnership and the timeless appeal of West Coast hip-hop. Their story is a vital piece of the hip-hop puzzle, and their music will be played for generations to come.